Okay, we're back again. It is Atlanta Discuss. I'm still your host and moderator. And my name still remains Ade Balogun. You know, every Friday we always come to you with something scintillating, something vibrating, something that will prick your conscience. And we go for just the facts. That's why it's Atlanta Discuss. It is a discussion because we have an opinion to on some of these issues. But when issues are pertinent, we are morally obligated to bring it to the front burner. I've said it in the past and I'll continue to say it again. The largest concentration of Black people on the planet is Nigeria. I don't think it is right, morally right, as a matter of fact, for any Black man to overlook, underrate, or sidestep Nigeria, because it is clear and it has been said by so many people, even from the Mandelas of this world, that if Nigeria gets it right, Africa will get it right. Nigeria clearly acting behind schedule, the beacon of hope for the Black race in 1960 when it got independent. At that time, Nigeria had economic parity with the Chinas, even the Malaysia were beneath Nigeria. Today, the reverse is the case. Now, we have a lot of patriotic Nigerians, even though people think we don't have any. People that are stereotyped, going out of their way, spending their money, try to change the narrative from we are corrupt, we are drug dealers, we are pen pushers. That's why I was in a meeting in Atlanta about 3 weeks ago, where everything they said was Nigerians are this and that. And I was morally courageous enough to tell them that this is America. 7 out of every 10 Black doctors in the United States are Nigerians. Why not refer to that statistic? Their statistics actually prove that in 2 to 3 of the 7 continents of the world, Nigerians are the most educated migrating bloc. So it was not only minors, but it is unfortunate when India, 1.2 billion people, will conduct an election where almost 800 million to about 700 million people will vote. And in 24 hours, they will see the result. And in Nigeria, the reverse is the case. The country that has the largest economy in Africa now has the 4th largest economy in Africa. That is why today we're going to bring the mentors, the scholars, the teachers, Professor Okedinachi Utomi, to Atlanta Discuss to tell us about the new tribe, a new initiative that wants to narrow the divide, that is going to create a new set of people that people don't know about in Nigeria, people that are there that have been quiet, people that want to break that barrier of Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, people that are going to do everything based on merit, people that will rejuvenate the true Nigerian culture. The recalibration is in progress. Professor Okedinachi Utomi, welcome to Atlanta Discuss.
Thank you so very much. What a pleasure to join you.
Yes, sir. Prof, what is the new tribe all about? Everybody's talking about it. I saw something. Let me just share this with our viewers. The speech you made just about 48 hours ago. Let them look at it.
Friends, compatriots, true brothers and sisters, dear Nigerians, I am Pat Okedinachi Utomi, and I feel particularly privileged to come to you on this 1st of May 2024, a day during which we unveil a portal that will lead us towards 1st of October 2024, the day we birth a new tribe that we believe will be a liberating force for our country, a country of great promise that has fallen on difficult times. To all humans, I think, is given the privilege of impact that can literally last forever, impact that will make generations remember them long after their body has become dust. And that impact, for me, is a path to immortality of being remembered by people who did not live in your time. For this generation, I am particularly persuaded that history has gifted us with the role of transforming a country that was once a great country of promise, but which somehow managed to lose its way. How do we resuscitate a nation of purpose and promise? In my view, as we unveil this portal, where we will shape a roadmap to this revolutionary initiative, a cultural revolution that essentially creates a new attitude bloodline, an attitude bloodline that seeks to put in place this revolution of values where personal integrity is considered prime, where institutional fortitude is something that you do not toy with, where the care for others is revered and celebrated, where the dignity of the human person is placed above any emotion of ethnicity, religion, where the work ethic is supreme and a people can produce their way not only out of poverty, but to the true dignity of man created by God to continue the business of creation. I am convinced that the work that we shall do on this platform will set course for the building of a new nation. And so I look forward to all who believe signing up, taking up a role, and daring to fly to where eagles challenge. Because this is the promise of our generation. Welcome to the portal of a new tribe. And on the 1st of October, let us birth this new nation, this new people who sing the words of our premier national anthem, though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. A nation of prosperous people who work hard, export, and build prestige around the world, not one that is described as having lost its strategic relevance in the world. Viva! Welcome to the new tribe. Welcome to the new Nigeria. Play your role because it is a duty. Play your role because in citizenship we find true dignity. Thank you and God bless you.
Okay, so you've all heard Prof. Prof spoke from the heart. Clearly, Prof is a patriot. There's no need to ramble it around the bush. He has been passionate from day one, even as a young man in the early 80s when he was personal assistant to the president, even almost at the youth cup when he worked at Volkswagen. Prof has been consistent. That's why if you go back to the internet, everything Prof has said from day one is coming to pass. We don't plan. We're not productive. We have charlatans ruling us. Our intelligentsia have abdicated responsibility. So that's what happened. So, Prof, today it's all yours. We're not going to discuss that. Today we're going to listen to you. What is the new tribe all about?
Well, the new tribe flows from a clear sense that a Nigeria that claims its promise is possible. But it is not going to come from wishful thinking. It's going to come from thoughtful action of citizens. Yesterday in Nigeria, there were two remarkable events that I participated in virtually. One was the Emeka Obasi Memorial Lecture, the first in the series, which was delivered by Kayode Fayemi, the former governor of Ekiti State. And the second was the Center for Values in Leadership, the center that I founded, celebrating 3 female vice-chancellors of University of Lagos, LASU, and UNAB, all women. And a specific purpose for this and the future of education in Nigeria. And it's come together in this thinking that Nigeria will not become what it should be just by our praying. It's going to come from thoughtful action of committed citizens. Kayode Fayemi said something I thought remarkable in response to a question that somebody asked. And that question was, look, all you guys who have preached all kinds of things, you've gone into office because Donald Duke was a chair. The outcome from when you are in office is not this thing that you preach. And in a very sincere way, I think they said, look, politicians are not going to deliver Nigeria because of the nature of the dynamics of the process. And he said something which alluded to, he didn't mention it directly, but I knew from my own background. One of the finest pieces ever written on Nigerian society by a political scientist, a political sociologist called Peter Ake. He's the head of the Department of Political Science at the University of Ibadan back in the 70s. Around 1975, wrote a remarkable piece that was titled The Two Publics. He took an approach to civic culture. People act usually in the context of their culture and the values that flow from it. And then when I say with values shaping human progress, people sometimes don't digest it fully. He said that in colonial circumstance, what happened was that whereas you have in America one culture, a civic culture, in which our behavior flows from, a certain value frame, we have in colonized societies two different cultures. One is a parochial culture, if you will, and the other is a public culture. In the parochial culture, the constraints that culture put on you, for example, if you are secretary of your local village council, the likelihood that you will steal 1 kobo is very, very high because the taboos, the consequences, and all of that. Again, I'd like to give a very interesting example of a friend of mine from Shagamu, who tells the story from the 50s of a neighbor who the whole society began to ostracize. The guy did not understand what he did, but everybody started ostracizing the family, running away from them. So one day they went somewhere and he was saying something, okay. What's the problem? Did we get into the prison business? It turned out that one morning, like 2 months before, around 5 a.m., a man wearing a police uniform was seen knocking on their door. And he went to our community. These guys are criminals. Policemen came to their house by 5 a.m. So the guy shouted, yeah. It was their cousin, who was a policeman in Kano, who took the night bus arrived around 5 a.m. And for 2 months, the community had totally ostracized these people. That is the parochial culture that prevents that corruption from taking place in your village community, that prevents you from stealing from your village fund because you know the consequence. But when you go to Abuja, which belongs to none, is no man's land, the same villagers will help you celebrate that you brought back the big meat from Abuja. You will use it to build town hall for them and all of that. So this fraction in the mind of the average Nigerian into two cultures explains, for example, why people elected under Labour Party that's supposed to bring change about, they get to Abuja, they're going to buy 160 million naira jeeps for them in an economy that is bankrupt, and they collect borrowed money. Yes, for borrowed money. It is because in their mind, don't let this thing pass me, this national cake that belongs to nobody, my own share of it, And so you come to see that the nature of the two publics prevents people who go into political parties from actually acting like citizens. They act to get their share, in a manner of speaking, because of the nature of the culture of the political parties. These are not national parties with a patriotic fervor to save their country. These are election machines that are controlled by, owned literally by some people. We give you the space to come in and use their business, let's put it that way, to get into office. And I thought it was very profound the way Kayode said it, because it shows that the citizens will have to take back Nigeria, not as members of this party or that party, but as citizens. And it fell squarely into the concept of the tribe. Because if you look at some phenomena that I have seen lately, it's literally frightening to me personally. I mean, I am the Nigerian, qua Nigerian. I don't have an understanding of ethnicity, quite frankly. If you look at all the causes I've supported in my life, they've hardly had anything to do with where I come from. In fact, something very interesting, in contradiction, struck me in this conversation. When June 12 took place, I was one of the first to rise. I essentially created the Concerned Professionals, which was, most young people who don't know this history sometimes don't understand these things. The Concerned Professionals was really the strongest rallying point. In many ways, created the so-called NADECO.
I was young, but I remember. I remember very, very well. Yeah.
Out of there was a meeting called Council for National Unity and Understanding. Baba Adeyinka Adebayo used to host those meetings, and he used to ask Commander Ebitu Kiwe to chair the meetings because he was host. Council for National Unity and Understanding was actually trying to build bridges between mainly the southern communities in Nigeria. They're bringing in middle belt and co. And we, as concerned professionals, essentially with Aswe Godalo, Tola Muboluri, and Tunde Akileye, the late Tunde Akileye, were our ambassadors to these grand old men who were able to encourage Chiba Ayo Adebanjo and co. to then found this resistance to Abacha, which became known as NADECO.
NADECO.
Yeah. So I was at the core of that whole movement. I'm not a Yoruba man. I didn't even think about Abiola as a Yoruba man. I just thought of him as, hey, this Nigerian who had a certain...
Born elected.
Yeah, you know, look, let's go behind what the Nigerian people have voted. Then I see people who go on the internet because I supported the idea that Peter Obi was the better candidate. Somebody who, any Yoruba man, I guess on the internet should insult. I said, me? 2 assassination attempts, I survived on account of my Abiola support. This is public record. Go and look at the trial of Abiola's wife, Kudirat. And he says to me something has gone so fundamentally wrong with our country. And I then have somebody, prominent, professional Igbo person, who visits me and is talking about, you see, Yoruba people are now insulting and abusing you everywhere. You nearly died for their cause. I thought, what their cause? I thought, the Abiola thing. It was not their cause, it was our cause. It was a Nigerian cause. And he said, look, that he was an undergraduate. When he read the list that I led, concerned professionals published one of the newspapers, because we used to take advertorials every other day. Said there were 39 people who signed. Only 3 of you were not Yoruba in that group. You know, I have never ever thought of it. It was the first time I was thinking of who signed that list. Really just professionals. I wrote this article in The Guardian and said we must say never again that we can't leave the business of Nigeria to soldiers and politicians. And so people wrote back, so what should we do? I said we should act. And we called the meeting, engineering close in Victoria Island. And people poured out, professionals. Even older people like Dr. Kolade showed up. That's how the Concerned Professionals was founded. To hear 30 years later that, I didn't look at the list, there were only 3 of us of the 39 that signed that were not Yoruba. I thought, my goodness, that is something years later. So it shows you how much the political class has damaged the idea of Nigeria. And that fundamentally, what will help us move away from that will be a values-driven revolution, a social, cultural movement that basically is anchored on one, the dignity of the human person, personal integrity, the work ethic, recognizing that you make progress when you, through work and creativity, put your mind to solving problems. And that you do it in collaboration with other men. That human solidarity is fundamental. There is a statement from Pope Francis that I love, circulated on the internet, that gives examples of, how in nature, your attributes are used for the good of others, not for yourself. A tree provides shade for humans, and this and that and that. That is really the truth of anybody who wants a good understanding of their place in society. If God had intended for us to be narcissistic, self-loving, alone, He wouldn't have created us in society. He would have created one person 20 miles from the other, 50 miles. But God created us in society because interdependence is the highest form of, of life. Children are born, they are born as infants, completely dependent. As they begin to mature, they become rebellious. They want to be independent. When they fully mature, they realize the value of interdependence. And so this social movement is designed to be a movement to bring Nigerians of interdependence, Nigerians who believe that the dream of the possibilities of Nigeria can be claimed when people collaborate one with the other, respectful of one another, and they can invariably go out and be part of political parties that are platforms for contesting ideas. But by then, they have gotten to a certain level of maturity within the social movement that makes them know that this contestation in political parties is about how rational conversation leads to superior choice between contending ways of solving problems, because there will be contending ways of solving problems. Right now, we don't have that. People don't think anymore in our culture. I mean, I sent out a tweet on X the other day condoling Nigerians on the East-West fire.
Yeah, I read it. I read it. Yeah,
and people started attacking me about Tinubu's Lagos Calabar Highway. See trouble.
Yeah. I saw everything.
Because I said East West immediately, it shows that people stop thinking that all they're obsessed with is, whether they're in these silos, and they don't ask themselves, the silo I am in, is what we have proposed right or wrong? No. I mean, that silo. Anybody in that silo must be attacked. That is the ultimate definition of a tribesman. You know the famous Greek definitions of people in society. At the base of society are idiots, people who think only of themselves. Now, when you move up from idiots, you begin to think of people who have a shared affinity, whether it's blood, language, religion, or whatever. These are tribesmen. And I love the way that Joshua Green, this professor at Harvard who runs the Center for Moral Cognition, describes that group in his book, Moral Tribes. Anybody outside of that tribe or that group, that parochial group, is an enemy that must be hunted down. That's the classic tribesman. And a lot of people have descended from citizens in Nigeria to tribesmen. Of course, the third level, which is what we are hoping we can help through the new tribe to build of Nigerians, is the citizen. The citizen believes in the universality of human dignity. The death of another man far away from a sudden earthquake diminishes me, even if there's no earthquake in my neighborhood. That shared humanity. So I think that we have to do everything we can working together to reshape culture in Nigeria. And the moral tribe, if you will, that we are creating, the new tribe, is designed essentially to breed citizens, passionately committed to Nigeria, patriots who know that together they are greater than what we are doing currently.
So interesting. Highly commendable. So, I've been following your work on the new tribe, and I know you studied a lot of Asian countries. Even more Asian than the Asian themselves and all that. Is there this idea of the new tribe? Is there anywhere in history that is taking place before?
All through revolutions come from building tribes. Talking about Asia, I was here in Washington in a very high-level conversation on China-American policy just 2 days ago, and I made a point that in the last 3 months alone, I've been back and forth in Thailand and Taiwan from November, I think 2 or 3 times, from Nigeria into Thailand to Taiwan. A certain fascination for ongoing developments in those parts of the world with existent tensions between Taiwan, obviously on Taiwan policy, and all of that. And I find a remarkable thing. I recall that on, I think it was this very last visit in last March, I was going to see a project site in Taiwan, somewhere near Taichung. And we branched into a mall and had lunch. And I went to the washroom, and I was trying to wash my hands, and I had one of those senior moments. I just put my cell phones out, like Nigeria, you carry more than one phone. Put down my 2 cell phones and washed my hands, and didn't remember to take the phones. And we left. We were at this site about 2 hours later when I said, I left my phones in the toilet. And Taiwanese guy who was leading said, not a problem. Your phones will be there. You will find your phone. Let's continue what we're doing. Whenever we finish, we go back. You'll find your phone. It's not, I've left my phones in places and found them, even in Nigeria. So it's not the fact that it's possible, but the confidence this guy had that in Taiwan, even if you leave the phone on a bus, you will find it. That is a culture. And lo and behold, 4 hours later, we returned to that place and my phones were available. I think that, when that happens to you, you understand the meaning of the word values shape human progress. It means that you can trust that society. You can invest in human beings in that society, not thinking that 419 will happen to you. This is really part of the lessons that come out to us from the Asian experience. I go back to the early days. People forget that these countries were not always like they are. Individual leaders, through moral force and commitment, changed those societies. At the time, Singapore was probably as corrupt, if not more corrupt, than Nigeria. Lee Kuan Yew took the realm, and then if anybody wants to go and read this chap's book, Jonathan, on how societies continue to create exceptional solutions even in a world in decline. Pepperman, the Pepperman's book, The Fix. I read how Singapore dealt with the corruption problem. I have felt it upfront. I've been going to Singapore like every year since through the late 80s. And you can see the incredible transformation of a society because of the impact of one man or the leadership tribe he created around himself. You can go and look at things that have been said about the new Prime Minister-elect, designates in Singapore, who will take over from Lee's son later this year as Prime Minister of Singapore. And look at his track. Look at how they select leaders. You will see how individual effects have impacted the transformation of society. Go across the border in Malaysia. Don't forget that in 1965, Singapore was a country on the throes of hopelessness. When Malaysia got rid of Singapore from the Federation, Lee literally broke down and wept. No resources. The ports, the natural ports, was their biggest source of revenue. The British Navy was their biggest tenant, and Britain had made the decision to shut down all their bases east of Eden. And Singapore was going to be in terrible straits. But they just put on their thinking caps, and in one generation, that same man would write his great memoir, The Singapore Story, From Third World to the First. So the people who chased them out of the Federation, not of their border, in Malaysia, they, of course, got impacted by all of this. When we were having our civil war, they had the race riots on the streets of Kuala Lumpur, Chinese, 1969, killing each other and stuff like that. And the leadership of one man had to literally locks up the elite into one room and say, look, you guys don't come out until we figure out how to work together and do things right. And the famous mantra that he used, which was drawn from Lyndon Baines Johnson, former US President, LBJ, said that it's better for everybody to be inside the house, pissing out, and for some people to be outside the house, pissing in. If everybody's inside the house and they go to the edge of the house and piss out, the house will smell nice. But if you put some people outside the house, they will piss into the house. And this is the biggest failing of Nigerian leadership. Inclusion. Nigeria will be suffering for a long time because there are many people who don't feel that they are part of Nigeria. If you are not inside it, you will piss into it, I assure you. And those who are inside that house will never smell good. But if you are leadership minded, your mind is broad enough, you will find a way to bring everybody inside the house. And as they're pissing out, everybody will be enjoying the house. So the Asians found that in a few leaders, that have set a course that has enabled them to triumph while we have been sliding back.
Interesting. So this new tribe, well, is it likely to culminate into a political party in the future?
No, it will not be a political party, but it will prepare members to join prepared parties.
Parties, okay.
I mean, right. In another, with another hat, I am in a movement associated with political parties, and that is the Big Ten. Now, the Big Ten deliberately tries to define policies and be the source of contestation of policy ideas, and will work in a party with a party. And right now, that party is the Labour Party. We intend to keep it that way. We hope that the Labour Party will broaden and become more inclusive, and will then absorb these ideas coming from the Big Ten on public policy that can make the country grow rapidly. I mean, let's just take a very simple idea that I find incredible. We're struggling with the exchange rate. Everybody's running up and down. They're doing all kinds of funny things to show up the exchange rate. It goes back, it comes back. It is abracadabra of one kind of another. Bottom line that everybody knows. Exchange rate is a function of your production and your export.
Mm-hmm.
If you of this, you've not dealt with security so people can produce. You've not dealt with an ambassador type UFN for entrepreneurship that would just create an entrepreneurial economy. Look, Taiwan, I was talking about a few minutes ago. Taiwan is a country of 24 million people. There are nearly 1.6 million successful entrepreneurs in the place. SME type of, but not front shop SME. SME that's creative, producing things. I have a couple of Taiwanese people who are encouraged to come to Nigeria after my last visit. They're visiting Nigeria right now, looking at, they have all kinds of technologies. If you have a stream beside your house, you can just rig up something that will pump water and air in a certain, rapidity to generate power. And there we are, living in darkness. Somebody called me and said, look, Tanzania has been using all these small water technologies. They have excess power. They're not trying to shut down some power stations. What is wrong with you people in Nigeria?
Unbelievable.
Just because politicians are thoughtless in Nigeria, they just look at whatever revenue can come out of oil, which they have nothing to do with. If they don't steal it, they will take it and share. So the country has just been stagnant. It's a tragedy. Nigeria's story is actually very tragic. But the good thing is that it can be turned around.
There's a question I've always wanted to ask you. I don't know, I always keep my mind. Today I'll ask it. Because I don't have an answer to it and I don't know who else to ask. The Nigerian intelligentsia have clearly, shamefully abdicated responsibility. I'm talking intelligentsia in diaspora. I'm talking intelligentsia in Nigeria. I'm talking Nigerian intelligentsia across the board. And it's not just an abdication, it's a major abdication of responsibility. How did we reach that point? How did Nigeria come to a stage where the lower urchins of the society are dictating the pace? When we have an armada, forgive me for using armada, it's meant for a large navy, but when we have an armada of intelligentsia, because I don't know any country in the world today where you don't have at least a Nigerian professor being part of the success of that country. You understand? How can we get to that, sir?
It's actually explainable. It's if you go back to the politics of Nigeria in the 50s, show me one major politician in the 50s who was not surrounded by intelligentsia, if you want to call them academics. Chibabolo, Professor Luko. I mean, you can like that.
Yeah, I know. All right. As young as I am, I can give you a list of what yeah.
Today, who are around your major politicians? Well, pimps. So how did you go from that to this? It's a combination of the convergence of soldiers and oil. How did that happen? By the time soldiers came to power in 1966, we went into a civil war, and then oil became more significant as part of the economy, which meant that you could ignore society and just use the revenues from oil to do whatever you like if you had power, if you were government. So, this happening under the military when debates in the parliament and all of that were gone. The only source of opposition in Nigeria in 1966-67 was the academic community. So the military were focused on humiliating and destroying academia. One of the first great examples was the University of Lagos protest, or strike, whatever you want to call it, industrial action by lecturers in 1975 or so, undergone. And the government gave the lecturers, I don't know how many days, to pack out of their residence in the university or whatever. They are fired, it was moved on by. And these lecturers found themselves, there was nowhere to go. It was the ultimate humiliation of the intellectual, and it began the exodus of intellectuals from Nigeria and from the public arena. They realized they were not just men of thought and ideas, they were human beings who had families to feed and all of that. I talked about this lecture in Lagos that Payemi gave yesterday at the anniversary of Emeka Obasi, passing. I remember Emeka Obasi particularly because of a statement he always made of me. And at first I used to wonder why he made it. He would say to me, look, you have not held public office in Nigeria for 40 years. You've not even held major, say, chairmanship or anything of that. And you have remained consistently relevant. It says, it may be just you in Nigeria, in a manner of speaking, possibly Professor Shoyinka, Wole Shoyinka in a different kind of way, but in a policy kind, Shoyinka is not a policy person, but in terms of how public choice is made in Nigeria, you are probably the only person without position of authority who has been consistently relevant for 40 years. And I would say, what does this, what's he, what's the point he's trying to make? After Emeka died, I began to reflect more on that remark that he made so constantly, so frequently. And it seemed to me that part of what he was saying is that the intelligentsia, or people who had the capacity, the know-how and the know-why to affect the public order, were so, I guess, minded by their personal material circumstance that they did not want to take the risk of engaging. Most of them did a retreat. Some became incorporated. There is in political science, there's a concept of the cooperative state in post-colonial Africa, where governments incorporate people who look like their opposition, or who have a different or a strong voice, bring them into the government and squash them. I mean, if you look at many things that happened, one of the great examples is under Babangida, people tended to go from NBA chairman or president to attorney general, Nigerian Medical Association president to minister
for health. Yeah, it was almost a tradition.
Yeah, and then the person will be made to do things against Emmanuel Lusan, Dr. Lusan. I feel so sorry for him because doctors still dislike him to hell till today. And yet he was one of the most radical presidents of the Nigerian Medical Association. But the cooperative state squashed him. Now somehow a combination of the grace of God and personal contentment and all of that made it difficult to incorporate me, which is, I guess, the point of Emeka's about how and why I was so-called, relevant without holding these positions. You see somebody who so important, so blah, 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 every day in front of the newspaper, you think he's the one who invented that area. He's moving from position the next day, never to be heard from again. He just disappears from public consciousness. So I think that all those things led to flight from the academy. I remember when there was a big issue, what the Kaduna Mafia called the Lagos Ibadan Ife axis. When the Guardian started, the op-ed pages were dominated by academics from universities of Lagos, Ibadan, and Ife at the time, now Bafemi Awolowo University. But one of those academics, very interestingly, Olufemi Taiwo, when he left the country, went to Canada and studied. He's a professor here in the US now, and wrote the book Africa Must Be Modern. Basically came to certain conclusions about how society is organized and why that is a problem for progress in Africa, and narrows it down to modernity. But in terms of the way that he was, say, aggressive as a young scholar in Ife back in those days, that energy, that emotional commitment has departed from the academic community in Nigeria. And that has been a Nigerian tragedy also, one of the real major troubles of Nigeria.
A major one. Let's go across to Ghana. Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, just like Buhari, has been trying to be president for a very, very, very long time. Now he got it. I mean, clearly, he too has bungled it to a very large extent, The Ghanaian economy is almost, if you look at the West African sub-region, Senegal has shown a lot of leadership and traction in recent time. But before what happened in Senegal, Ghana was actually the only country that showed stability democratically. There's been a lot of transition from opposition party to ruling party over and over again, MPP, NDC, as Now, Ghana is not looking too good. Nigeria is clearly unstable. Ghana too, clearly unstable. Senegal has shown traction, and there's been a lot of coups across the Sahelian trajectory and all that, Now we have countries like Burkina Faso, Mali, though military, they are voicing out, of course, tilting Russia, which obviously doesn't even mean they are doing the right thing. So, and I'm speaking for the continent of Africa, people coming, even Museveni now is speaking against the West, somebody that is even a Western creation in itself. A lot is happening between Congo, DR, and Rwanda. There seems to be a lot of instability. South Africa now, there's a lot of power outages and all that, shamefully so, a friend of mine used to say that if Zimbabwe got independence in 1980, that's why they still, despite all their shortcomings, the country still looks structurally okay and all that. Why do you think the black man has been going around in circles? Because we get it right, maybe for example, under Obasanjo, we got it a little bit right, it could have been better, but we've been receding since that time, and it's been like that. Buhari, you said, and I will never forget, you said every conversation you had with Buhari before he got into power was highly productive. He sounded so much like a patriot. But he came, and clearly it's the worst we've ever had. Subject to when Tinubu ends his tenure. Now, Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa, elite, highly educated, obeying, has bungled it. So all the core people that so much hope was given to, when they ruled, they bungle it. Why are we like that? It's black man's thing or just that Africa? I don't know. I'm asking. I'm naive about that, but I'm compelled to ask it.
No, it is partly people not trying hard enough to understand the structure of post-colonial society, and therefore making choices that fall into a certain trap. Look, the Ghanaians talk so much about how they have learned from Nigeria. As oil becomes a factor, they will not make the same mistakes Nigeria made. And they just went straight into the Nigeria. So it shows how little we try to understand the nature and the complexity of the post-colonial state in Africa, which is part of why I went back to Peter Eke and the two publics. Some 30-something years ago, the world minded to provide some kind of new base for Africa in sub-regions, try to create some networks of young entrepreneurs and policy-minded people. The one in West Africa was called the West African Enterprise Network. I was one of those who started that network around 1989 or thereabouts. The chair of our network in West Africa was a Ghanaian whose father had been in public life in a very senior position, Ken Ofori-Atta. In Ken, we had all kinds of incredible conversations about how our economies should be structured. And Ken ends up finance minister under Akufo-Addo. And literally, I don't know what happened to Ken. I don't know. But like I say, one must understand power as a tool of service, sacrificial, to be used to advance the good of others and the common good. And I've told people, look, if you advance the good of others, don't go saying, hey, what about me? Because somehow good will come back to you. I mean, I give a small example from our country. There was a certain medical doctor called Michael Okpara, who became premier of Eastern Region. Many people remember Okpara as one of the truly great leaders Nigeria has produced. Okpara organized the economy of Eastern Region. It was growing so fast, he could boast in 1964 that if you excise Eastern Region from Nigeria, it will be the fastest growing economy in the world. He apportioned GRA, Enugu, literally, area they call New Haven, and all of that. He didn't give himself one plot of land, not one.
Land. Wow.
When the coup took place and he went into exile and came back, the only house that used to be available to him when he was premier was his father's bungalow. Bungalow his father built back in the, I don't know whether it's 40s or what, the 50s. And Michael Okpara did not have a house. People had to rally around, build him something. But I asked people, can you check all the governors of the Southeast? Because the premier covered the whole of what is today's Southeast and then Cross River and all of that. Can you tell me how many governors you remember who have been in Enugu, Aba, in the last 50 years? Most people can't remember any. But most can remember Michael Okpara, who had no
Well.
And so I try to tell people, look, you have to recognize that the benefits, the good of serving is immortality. It is not your material gain of now. It is how history remembers you. You know, I gave an interview in 1991. You know, it was an interview given by a chap called Dozie Arinze. It was published in Mr. Magazine. And he asked me what was the purpose of being. I just had an accident in which I nearly died, you know, and I just came back from hospital in England, in Germany, and resting in England. When he came to do this interview, I said, you know, for me, the essence of being is the pursuit of immortality. And that there are two kinds of immortality. One I call material immortality. And that is to be remembered by people long, long after your body has become dust. And this, one of the easiest ways to achieve material immortality is through the reaching word. Kids remember Shakespeare like he was their next door neighbor. I quote Machiavelli, you know, without thinking, 500 and something years after he died. You know, and I usually then go off into a couple of Machiavelli quotes. Like nothing is more difficult to bring about than a new order of things. Because those who profit from the new order will do everything to prevent, who profit from the old order will do everything to prevent the new order from coming about. While those who could profit from the new order not do enough to make it happen. Because man is incredulous in his nature, not wanting to try new things until he has had experience of it. Those words were written more than 500 years ago. And describe the challenge that we're dealing with today. But the point I'm trying to make right here now is that Machiavelli is still alive because of those words and many other words that he wrote. So he has achieved immortality. The other immortality, of course, the one that comes from religion, from faith, is the desire to see God face to face. And people of faith achieve immortality when they live lives in service to others and to God that give them a chance of being heralded, welcome, good and faithful servant. So those words from that interview in 1991 continue to be what I offer people who seek public life. If you really want gain from public life, make that gain the arena of immortality, not the arena of your bank account or power of, if you raise your eye, people will fall down. It's so short-sighted, so short-lived, which is why my autobiography is titled "To Serve is to Live." To live is to serve. If you can't serve others, you don't have life. So if you look at West Africa and all the troubles that we have, it comes from either people getting overexcited about power, forgetting the place of intellect and sacrifice. You know, in case of Nigeria, significant part of it is the abdication of intellect. You know, na book we go chop. They make the grammar, theory. They really make thinking look like a bad thing. Nigerian politics actually sneers at thinking. And this is why what they produce, they put any kind of charlatan in any position, no sense for merit. And of course, the person gets there, the first thing they are thinking of is what they can. I mean, if I look at some of the things that have happened with Tinubu's crowd, people who have already been suspended, and within a few weeks, we are moving billions out already. What is it what is the problem? These people are not well. What are you're not thinking with all your education, you're not thinking, how will society remember me? Within weeks, in a public position, you move billions of naira. This is disease. Something is wrong with these people. But unfortunately, that's what we confront. That's what has made West Africa look like it looks. And I'm so happy for Senegal. I don't know if it was even in our last conversation, I referred to meetings I used to attend in France.
Yeah, it's with
Ouattara, and all these people. And I used to look at Abdoulaye Wade. And all the noise he used to make at those meetings, rallying against Diouf and co. And then I see Wade as a president do exactly the same thing I'm doing.
It was.
Yeah, what? Is this for real? So, when I think Basuba Nabati said something about Asurok, that maybe there's something they put there that maybe when they get there, behave in a particular way, I laughed. We can characterize things to make it seem supra-natural. But we just don't learn from the experience of others. Look, most American presidents come to the White House with certain staff persons who don't even call them Mr. President. These are the guys whose business is to keep them real. I mean,
telling the truth.
Yeah. Clinton had even a team, back in those days, the right-wing media or radio guys, Rush Limbaugh and co. used to, go after Clinton. In fact, I don't know which one of them was, maybe Rush Limbaugh was counting down on the Clinton presidency as America held hostage. This is 239th day of America held hostage as the 239th day of the Clinton presidency, and then he will go after him. Now, Clinton's team had people whose business was to tell him things about his policy ideas, such that if Rush Limbaugh said worse, those people should consider themselves as having failed. Now, this is so important for leadership. In Africa, we surround ourselves with people who tell us, Your Excellency, that thing that you're about to say is correct, sir. That thing you're about to say is correct. You have not said it. They don't even know what it is, but it's correct. So, it then makes for difficulty. So Senegal, however, in the midst of what Sall and Wade and co have done, has managed to build citizens. And this is what is really important. It is the thrust, and that's why we're coming to this idea of the new tribe. Citizens.
New tribe, yeah.
Citizenship. As Redefining said, it is not the political parties that will save Nigeria. It's got to be citizens. So if we can mold citizens through a new tribe, then we can get people who go out and act like the Senegalese. But, I'm very happy for Senegal. I think that they're doing some of the right things in terms of their citizenship and democracy. But I think that the emerging leaders have to be clever to understand the world and to play the game smart, which is what the Asians did. Look, in international politics, power games get played. States are power maximizers in the international arena. So they try to dominate. And part of the way that they do it is in what some people have declared as the immorality of power politics. They use vassal states, weaker states, bully them for their own interest. France has been terribly notorious in history for that. And they live off their past adventures. They have ruined many economies in Africa to maintain their own quality of life, subjected them in post-colonial times through things like the CFA and all of those. Navigating out of that will involve a lot of skills, a lot of good networking. I refer to the Haiti story in asking Faye, the young man in Senegal, to watch his path. In 1789, Haiti had the highest per capita income in the world. This always shocks people.
Wow.
1789, highest per capita income in the world. Today, it is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. How did that happen? Well, two things in the Haiti story. One, it was, of course, a plantation economy in those days. There was a great plantation. Population wasn't as much. The slaves, who came mainly from Nigeria, became rebellious from very, very early and overthrew the French order. If you go to Latin America, many of those countries, you will see busts of black men before their parliament. Those were exported generals from Haiti going to lead wars of revolution in Latin America. So France managed to find a way of ganging up even with the United States to implement blockades against Haiti. Haiti did not make the transition from the plantation economy to the industrial economy. And France managed to impose reparations. Can you imagine that? Was getting reparations for Haiti, even until the, 50s or 1950s. And totally crippled that economy. And so a clever way of navigating the international order, not to let France's bad ways affect Senegal's possibilities, is a very important skill that the new leaders of Francophone West Africa, by the way, generally, ought to look. What is happening in most of those Francophone West Africa countries are not so far-fetched to have been seen. General Obasanjo came back from one trip to Conakry just before all of these things that are happening. And I was in conversation with him. He said, look, Pat, there's serious danger. The young people in those countries, in the military in those countries, are looking to move in, that they're going to be around for a long time. It's not moving, come and change government. No. The feeling he's getting, the vibes he's getting. A few months later, all those coups started taking place in Francophone West Africa.
Wow.
So the signals were there. And I do hope that the world realizes that we live in an age of information in which people have come to understand cheating. And this is the revolt of the cheated. But it has to then be managed in a way that it's more productive for the broad good of the society.
Wow. That's Prof, vintage Prof. Utomi, thank you so much. You've shed light. Now we know so much about the new tribe the purpose, why it's there. And I think the launch is going to be October 1st proper, but we at Atlanta Discuss will do everything to disseminate. We're ready to do anything good for Nigeria, anything to propagate the Nigerian gospel in the right way. We are not negative, we're not criminals, we're not Yahoo or fraudulent people, as they might say. The percentage of people doing the right thing might be negligible, but it doesn't matter. I mean, if you are character-driven and all that, it will resonate eventually. I was reading about Castro the other day, the revolution when they're in Sierra Mountain. There were just about 25 people. Then they grew to 120. And, even there was the time they lost hope. And all of a sudden, so we should never give up. Professor Utomi, thank you for coming to Atlanta Discuss. Thank you for not just shedding light, but enlightening us and giving us hope that the largest concentration of Black people on the continent will come up again and stay where it should be in the community of nations. To our listeners, our viewers in the 7th continent, Europe, we appreciate you. Africa, Asia, we appreciate you. North and South America, Australia, we appreciate you always. It's a wrap. See you next Friday. God bless you all. Bye.